You know, you really should watch what you eat. Junk in, junk out. Dude, seriously? I'm here for a good time, not a long time. Wait, do that again. And then... That's genius!
Doritos Locos tacos have been a popular menu item at Taco Bell since 2012. It's just Taco Bell's signature crunchy taco shell with Dorito dust on the outside, specifically the nacho cheese Dorito dust, which is the most popular flavor. My friend Daniel suggests that I remake it, but with the spicy sweet chili flavor. I think there's a couple copycat recipes of the nacho cheese flavor, but I've never seen it done with the spicy sweet chili. Here's what I came up with. For the crunchy taco shell, we're going to need, of course, some corn tortillas, and then I just get a medium saucepan and add 1.5 inches of oil. Once that heats to about 350 to 375 degrees Fahrenheit, we can add in one of the tortillas. You can buy taco shell molds for this, but I don't think it's necessary. I'm going to show you how I did it without them. I give that about 10 seconds untouched, and then I flip it and give it about 5 seconds on the second side. Then it's time to get to work. With some tongs, I fold it over itself and try to get it into this taco shell form until it hardens. I was first doing this with one pair of tongs, and my results came out a little less than ideal. So if you have 2 pairs of tongs, it makes it a little easier. I'm just holding one end folded with my non-dominant hand and then moving around with my dominant hand and trying to form the shape. I want to give it a little bit of a flat bottom so it can sit on its own, so I'm kind of crimping this and making it what I want. You have a few seconds of playtime before it starts to harden, so you should be fine. There's a learning curve, so you get better as you do it. But anyway, once you start to see slight browning around the edges, then that's when you pull it. You don't want it to burn. I drain the oil and then I stick it on my wire rack, and then we're going to dust it with our Dorito dust. And I came up with something I think is pretty close to the dust that they use. I think it's supposed to resemble the spicy sweet Thai chili sauce that people use for dipping. I'm adding these items into my spice grinder so that they're as fine as possible so I can sieve them over the shell. I've got 2 teaspoons of red chili powder and 2 teaspoons of smoked paprika, a good pinch of salt, maybe a teaspoon, and then a very important 2 teaspoons of MSG. This is where most of your potato chips and corn chips get their addicting flavor from. And of course 2 teaspoons of sugar because this has to be sweet. I'm also adding in 2 teaspoons of this soy sauce powder that I found online. It's listed in the ingredients on the back of the Dorito bag, so I thought it was non-negotiable. I figure I can use this for other stuff down the road too. Just finishing with 1 teaspoon each of garlic powder and ground ginger. Then I just whiz all this up until it's homogeneous. I really want to break up those salt crystals because they're kind of big. To me, this came out tasting almost identical, even though there was probably some things I could improve. Either way, when the taco shells are fresh out of the oil, I'm going to dump this seasoning over through a sieve. And as you can see, the powder is kind of too fine to sit in the sieve and it just falls right through. But just do your best to get this all around the shell and on the inside as well. You might want to make more of the spice mix because this was just enough for me to make 9 taco shells, just FYI. But you could do this with any kind of seasoning mix over a freshly fried taco shell. But let's move on to the next most important item, which is the seasoned ground beef. Into another medium saucepan, I'm just adding 1 pound of 80/20 ground beef. There's going to be enough fat so we don't have to add oil here. Just pressing that into an even layer on the bottom so it can start to brown. I give that a good 5 minutes untouched so we can get a nice mired reaction on the bottom before I start agitating it. But afterwards, I'm just stirring this around until most of the water is evaporated. Many recipes and many people will tell you as soon as you stop seeing pink in the meat, then you're done. But I think you're missing out on a lot of flavor that way. The meat is technically cooked through and safe to eat at this point, but there's still some water content which is going to inhibit the browning on the meat, which is the flavor that you're looking for. So if you continue to stir this around for a few more minutes, then you're going to notice more of the water evaporate and then it'll start to fry in the fat. Which you don't really have to worry about this meat drying out because there's enough fat in this to keep it moist. You'll see a fond start to develop on the bottom, which means most of the water is evaporated and you're getting good mired reaction. So I just basically take this to the point where the fond is about to burn but not burned. I'm going to add about 2 tablespoons of tomato paste here just to increase that umami flavor. Stir that into the beef and allow it to start adhering to the bottom, which is going to add to the fond. Now finally we're going to add in our spice mix and toast that before we add water. And this is almost just a standard white people taco seasoning which you can find at most stores. I think Taco Bell actually sells their seasoning in packets so you can just buy one of those. But here's how I'm going to make this one. I'm also doing this in a spice grinder but it's not necessary. I'm adding a tablespoon of all-purpose flour which is going to act as a thickening agent for the beef, 1 tablespoon of onion powder, and then 1 teaspoon each of garlic powder, smoked paprika, chipotle chili powder, and ground cumin. About a 1/4 teaspoon of cayenne pepper, then I'm just giving it a teaspoon of salt, and then 1 beef bouillon cube. If you have beef bouillon powder, that's even better. I'm just going to kind of break this up with my knife before adding it to the spice grinder so it's a little easier. And then finally, just a small pinch of sugar, like a 1/4 teaspoon. Mix all that up, and that's a white people taco seasoning mix. I just add that to the beef and stir it around for like 30 seconds just to add a little bit more Maillard reaction to it. And then I'll finally finish by adding a half cup of water. Taco Bell's beef is notoriously soupy, so this is how we're going to mimic that. Just stir everything around and scrape up all the stuff on the bottom and just make sure it's cohesive. I just season a taste with a little bit more salt, and that's all you got to do. I'm going to make one more component to make this taste a little bit better. Instead of just regular sour cream, we're going to make a simple Chipotle lime sour cream. So into however much sour cream you want, I'm going to add the juice of half of a lime and then a couple of spoonfuls from a can of Chipotles in adobo. Just basically add as much of either of those two ingredients till it tastes like what you want. It's just a little bit more tangy and spicy version of sour cream. Now to assemble the taco, I'm going to get one of the shells that can stand up on its own, add a couple of nice spoonfuls of the ground beef, and then I'm adding a handful of shredders that I sliced from a head of iceberg lettuce, top with a few cubes of Roma tomato that we just cut fresh, a handsome dollop of your Chipotle lime crema, a handful of extra sharp cheddar cheese shredded by hand of course, and then Taco Bell doesn't do this, but I have to add onions and cilantro. I mean, this doesn't really look anything like Taco Bell's tacos, but I think the point was to make a hard shell taco with the flavors of spicy sweet chili Doritos on the outside, and I think we accomplished that. Gather around and let's get to the taste test.
All right, this is kind of silly, but is it okay for me to say I'm kind of excited for this? Of course, no fast food item is going to stand up to a homemade one, and I'm not really here to point out that obvious fact. The point of this video is not to do the side-by-side comparison because I'm not really in the business for that, but we do have them side by side, so we do have to test it out. My mic wasn't recording when I took the first bite of this, so I'm going to go again with this Dorito Taco Supreme, which costs almost $4, which is kind of insane. Anyone who tells you that lacks flavor is lying to you. The beef is seasoned. I mean, it does have a lot of MSG in it, but it still tastes good. Of course, it has that manufactured taste that pretty much all fast food has, but I'm not repulsed by it. I don't know about you. I also had to get a bag of the spicy sweet chili Doritos so I could make sure that my seasoning was on point. And this was the nacho cheese Dorito taco because that's all that exists, so I need to get this flavor into my palate. Not my favorite Dorito, but it does have a good mix of spicy and sweet. Also packed with a lot of MSG, I imagine. But now on to the star of the show, which is a really hefty packed, crunchy taco. And these themselves are kind of sacrilegious to Mexico, but gotta do what you gotta do for a video. Cheers. One bite and it immediately breaks apart, which that's how crispy it is. Wow, every layer of that is full of flavor. I will say the beef between the two tacos tastes pretty similar in terms of seasonings at least. I mean, the beef I used is probably better quality and it was cooked better, so it tastes better, but the flavoring inside matches what Taco Bell's has. But the flavors we put into the sour cream really step this up, and of course the onions and cilantro on top. But as for the seasoning on the shell, I think we came pretty close. I wouldn't say identical, but the flavors of the soy sauce come out of both, and that's what makes them similar. Really, I think the point is just adding a lot of MSG and sugar, and that's what's gonna make this taste good. But again, that was just a silly little experiment. I don't think I would ever go out of my way to make this again, but it was fun. There's far better tacos out there to make, but if you're a white person taco kind of person, then I don't judge you. But that's gonna be it for me today. Thank you all for watching, be blessed, and I'll see you next time. I hope you're proud, Daniel.